Kirsty from Save Money Cut Carbon, and today we're here in London to meet Business Growth Fund to talk a little bit about why they've partnered with Save Money Cut Carbon through our Carbon Mentor programme to help their businesses achieve their net zero goals. So Roshni, can you tell us a little bit about your role at Business Growth Fund?
So I lead the ESG and sustainability efforts at Business Growth Fund, or what we also call BGF. And the purpose of my role is to support primarily our portfolio companies. So we have a really large portfolio of 300 plus businesses, really thinking about how they should manage their environmental performance, their social performance, as well as the governance structures they have this in place. I also then focus on our internal efforts within BGF because we as a company also need to be thinking through our ESG support.
So why is sustainability important to BGF and also other stakeholders within the investment community?
Now, the reason why it's become critical is that businesses have recognized that they have a responsibility beyond just the shareholders, that they are essentially using planetary resources, they are succeeding on the impact of their own employees, as well as the goodwill of their customers and the communities. So it's a factor of bringing in the views and considering the impact that you have, positive and negative, on a wider set of stakeholders, essentially. And that's what ESG is trying to capture and also quantify better. And I think the reason why it's become important to internal stakeholders within the investment committee is that all of these factors, which sometimes are called non-financial risks and opportunities, have a critical impact on the way a business grows, on the way that the capital is deployed, on the way that they will be able to gain returns.
So tell us a little bit about BGF's sustainability journey in particular, because you're now a B Corp, aren't you?
Yes. So for us, the sustainability journey has been quite interesting. So we obviously started about 12 years ago. So the purpose of BGF is to fill the equity gap or the funding gap in the market, specifically felt by SMEs and growth stage businesses. And this is at the backdrop of the financial crisis. When the crisis hit, it was essentially the backbone of the economy, which is the SMEs and the growth stage businesses, which were left out of the equity. Over the years, what we've seen is that sustainability has to be an integral part of the way that we support this long-term partnership model, which means that oftentimes when we're thinking about embedding sustainability, we often work on the governance the first. So for the last sort of 8 or 9 years, the governance piece has become really critical as well as solidified. When I joined about 2.5 years ago, that's when we started really thinking through how do we now put a structure and a framework behind this. Because we were doing a lot of work, as I said, on the governance side, the people side or the S side was obviously very, very important. And the environmental side was an area where we had the largest opportunity to improve. So my role or my experience over the last 2.5 years has expanded into creating the right frameworks, of which B Corp is one of them, but also really enabling access to expertise support for the companies and for ourselves so that we can convert the framework into a reality.
So in your experience, Roshni, are businesses with a really clear sustainability strategy more investable?
Yes, because it demonstrates a few critical aspects. The first is, just like any other strategy, sustainability strategy needs to be owned from the top and then delivered effectively. And if a business is able to articulate why they are thinking about sustainability, what specifically they are thinking about when they say ESG or sustainability, it reflects very well on the ability of the management to deliver it, but also critically for the employees who often own the ESG delivery to know exactly what they are moving towards. It also de-risks a business essentially, as we talked about earlier. These are non-financial risks and opportunities that have a very real impact. And the fact that we are going through a huge transition, whether it's the climate transition, whether it's the expectation of the new employees. So businesses need to be ready to be able to respond to these changes. So the way that we think about ESG is not just a nice to have, but it really improves the core of the business, improves the ability of the leadership to create more value, and then that effectively makes them more investable.
Why did BGF come looking for a partner like Save Money Cut Carbon?
the gap that we are trying to fill, especially on the environmental side, is essentially take businesses on a journey with us. So when we invest in a business, it is very common for us to see that across their environmental, social, and governance, the environmental side will be the weakest. And when I say the weakest, it will probably be lacking the structure and the strategy that we talked about. It doesn't mean that the business is lacking the ambition or the ethos that we think about when the environmental perspective is put into place. And the biggest issue over there is the upskilling and the understanding around what do I need to do. And that's where they need a partner or a friend that they can speak with who can translate this into simple terms for themselves. And then, of course, give them the confidence that it is possible. A lot of times they get overwhelmed by the number of articles and the constant barrage of different acronyms. So it's translating that into simple terms of here's what it means for your business and your business model. The reason why the Carbon Mentor program really made sense to us is because obviously the partnership could enable that conversation, but more effectively, the Carbon Mentors had a lovely way of engaging with the businesses, with the people that spoke to them, and translate the business perspectives of you're an industrial business or you're a tech consultancy. What does environmental performance mean for you? And from there, I think the big gap that often we've seen in the market is, yes, there are people who can have this conversation, but then how do you take them to the next step, which is we've had a conversation about, for example, well, you should change your HVAC system or you should reconsider your fleets. How do you actually take them forward? That's where I think the Carbon Mentor program really pushes them and makes it easier to take the next step in understanding, well, here are some solutions, here's the payback of it, and here's how we as a business can continue in this journey of supporting you.
What does tomorrow look like for you? What's the real ambition for BGF when it comes to sustainability?
What tomorrow looks like is a few things. The first is across all of our business, there is clarity of strategy around ESG. We want especially the senior leadership teams, the CEOs and the CEOs to be articulate very clearly. When we say ESG, it means 1, 2, and 3 for us. From there, what we want to be seeing within the business is their approach towards building more accountability. Who within the business is going to own the environmental side, the social side? How does it integrate together? And then from the accountability comes the implementation side, which is equally critical, which is, yes, you've set this wonderful idea up, but how do you make it a reality? And that's where good partnership with businesses like SMCCs are quite critical. The last piece for us is the building transparency side. Your employees need to be brought along the journey with you, especially if it is a critical factor like net zero or closing the gender pay gap, as well as your broader community of customers and your investors. So it's this idea around that how can we get all of our businesses under the model of good growth to have a clearer strategy, to have accountability, to have strong implementation, and then create the transparency that we think is critical. For us as BGF, I think sustainability is going to evolve because we've obviously taken one big step, which is the B Corp certification. From the B Corp certification, we have identified a number of areas that we're very strong in, but also areas that we want to improve. So the areas that we're already strong in is how we engage with our workers and the kind of support we provide our workers, whether it's economic support and opportunities. So we want to make sure that we keep the focus over there because we are a people-based business. The second piece that we want to be improving on is actually our environmental side, which more relates to how do we then support our portfolio, how do we have the right KPIs and the structures in place. But overall, net, I think ESG and sustainability is a long-term effort which you build on. And that can only succeed if you win the hearts and minds of people. You have to de-jargon a lot of the conversation. You have to remove some of the hindrances in terms of lack of understanding of or other pieces becoming more critical when ESG is a part of the strategy.
So Roshni, thank you so much for your time today. It's been great to talk through our partnership, great to talk through where you see BGF going forward in the future. And we look forward to working with you in the future as well.
Thank you, Kirsty. I think we've really enjoyed all the support that we've received from Save Money Cut Carbon, and we've definitely seen the benefit for the portfolio through it. So thank you for your time.